lounging, son.
Welcome back to the Comic Lounge. My name's Ryan, and back with me today, one of my good pals, Christian Meesey, aka Meesimo. We're doing a creator commentary on his Turbo Hawk #1. Super stoked to have you back and talking this awesome comic, dude.
Yeah, so stoked to be back, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, excited, dude. Let's talk Turbo Hawk #1.
Yeah, man.
A little bit of the history. How did this where did this story come from?
So this started way back. The actual origins of Turbo Hawk started as a comic that I worked on in high school called Quest for Rain. And this is a picture of the zine that I made. Like I'd go to Kinko's in the middle of the night, spend all night figuring out how to make sure the pagination was correct. You know, it's only 12 pages, but figuring I had it down to a science after a while, but I did 3 issues of Quest for Rain and sold it to my classmates. Some of the material in a different form made it to the current version, but it's like redrawn, reformatted, rewritten. But the kernels of Turbo Hawk started with Quest for Rain back in '94. So when I was right in the middle of like the Image founders, like glory days, sparked this comic basically, but also like The Crow, Sin City, like all the great like outlaw comics, that day. And of course, it pales in comparison to those, but I was reaching for the stars. During the pandemic, I talk about it a little bit in that Screwy 2020.
Mm-hmm. Great book.
A zine of that section. The Image stuff, I love it, but it's perfect for that like 12-year-old, 15-year-old mentality.
Mm-hmm.
And then you move on to like Sandman and Love and Rockets and Julie Doucet and like other more lofty and sophisticated so-called artsy comics.
Mm-hmm.
But I still had a love for like awesome, badass, Image style, just action and cool pouches and shiny armor and like
Yeah.
great action. So seeing like they can love Daniel Klaus, but also love Rob Liefeld.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, and I never finished the story. So I came back. This is the second printing cover of Turbo Hawk #1.
This is the first printing for
That's
everybody
the original.
at home. By the way, love the shout out that you gave me as a part of the beta readers and cheerleaders. Thank you for that. That was awesome to see. And also, I love who you dedicated the book to. The founding fathers. So who's Brian McDonald? You should call him Sensei. I'm just curious. I wanted to ask you.
He's like storytelling sensei, like amazing teacher, amazing writer. Did a book called Invisible Ink. That's like the best book on storytelling I've ever read. Like I always go back to it. It's like just fundamentals. It's on screenwriting, but you could replace screenwriting with a storytelling or writing an email even. It's just like having a conversation. The fundamentals of storytelling he nails so succinctly that I became a fan for life, and I've gotten to be friends with him over the years, taking his classes, and amazing. But he put out this book more recently. I don't know if you've seen that one.
Yeah. No, it's
Toby Cypress, another awesome artist, super
okay.
inspiring, but great, graphic novel about the land of the dead. So it's a story in itself.
Okay.
It connects a bunch of stories, but how the land of the dead features into storytelling since the beginning of stories, basically.
Oh, that's interesting.
So,
I gotta check that out.
like, he's my like sensei as far as any storytelling. So I'm always aspiring to the goal of something worthy of his kind of level. One of the big dedications, of course, a lot of friends that read it and gave me some notes and, cheerleading along the way and the Image founding fathers. So they are kind of the bedrock of what I was inspired by then and when I revisited it. So got into, and some of these pages, like sequences, were inspired by stuff that I wasn't looking at directly, but I had seen.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I went back to look at like, oh yeah, I think I was kind of inspired by Dave McKean or certain sequences, and I look back and it's almost as if I had it right next to me. But so it's kind of cool to revisit some of these influences, how they impacted some just more spiritually and some like almost directly. So I got into the Image founding fathers, but then like Paul Pope, like Escapo was a big one. THB, like his it's like you could almost picture him standing up in a studio with a page on an easel and just like going at it with a brush, like
Yeah.
so much energy and like so the face on the bottom of the first page here is really like Paul Pope influenced and like Dave McKean with the bird sequence, but this is trying to get a little more symbolic and ease into the story. The bird, Turbo Hawk, some glimpses at some characters to come.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you because it's I mean you call Surreal Studios, is the
Yeah, yeah.
is the logo on there. And it does have this very like surreal feeling, especially like the second page on the right, where like the bird is like looks like it's turning into the character.
Has some cool morphing that's like don't quite know what's going on, but you can see some kind of cool character representation going on. And this book, Dave McKean did a couple books of like short stories they just would work on over the years, and Cages was a big one back in the day. And Pictures That Tick, Volume One, had this just cool silent sequence of. So I kind of had that in mind, and I went back to it this week to look it up, and it's surprisingly similar,
Yeah.
at least in some of the feel I was going for. But he's one of these guys that just keeps producing work. Like you won't hear so much about it on regular comic
Yeah,
outlets or comic stores, but
he's definitely not talked about as much, but I know that well, I don't want to get into this topic, but I know he had shared some thoughts on like AI art, and I think he
yeah,
got kind of like well, I don't want to get into it. But
sure, sure,
he caused some like conversation, let's say some intense conversation on the internet, like on social media
right.
when he was sharing his thoughts, which I thought was interesting to come from somebody that's like such a prominent, in my mind, such a prominent artist. But
Right. Well, he had some interesting things as far as like he's horrified by the technology, but he said that I thought was interesting. He could either crawl up in the fetal position and ignore it or try to interact with it in some way. So like not without getting too much into it, I think he wants to get into the an ethical way of using it. Like it's an interesting conversation.
yeah.
Certainly they go off on its own tangents, but I
Yeah.
love him as
Yeah,
much as I love his like Photoshop work, I love his brush work and his actual drawing. Like I got to see some Cages pages at a
hmm.
gallery one time, and
Oh, that's
he
cool.
had a bunch of pencil drawings, and they're amazing. Like he can draw like the best of them, and amazing designer.
Yeah,
I
I'd love
love
to see
his
some of his
actual,
stuff in person. That'd be cool.
definitely influenced by that. And I was probably using a paint marker, not even a real brush on these, but
Hmm.
I was going for that feel. And the texture even is kind of I use it on a lot of stuff, but I was influenced by some of his stuff. Well, he'll do just like a watercolor wash on the back and
Hmm.
then draw on the top of it, or even composite those in Photoshop. And then
I
so
love
the
this right here.
continuing,
These are
so it's
dope.
going from like Dave McKean to like Jim Lee land with the shiny metal and man, like Jim Lee drawing Colossus or like Arthur Adams drawing Colossus, like was just always the coolest thing how they drew like the metal
Yeah.
metallic sheen.
I kind of prefer Art Adams' Colossus now that I'm thinking about it a little bit over Jim Lee's. I love Jim, don't get me wrong, I love Jim Lee's X-Men. Like that's
He's the
obviously
best.
embedded in my brain,
Right.
but I really dig the way Art Adams draws Colossus. I think the way he draws like big, like, bulky characters is just like
Yeah.
I love it.
And he did a really cool version of Cable early on in one of the X-Men annuals. And the coloring's a little off register, so like you can't really see it that well. Like getting that in those like X-Men essentials, like the black and white ones, you can really enjoy Arthur Adams' line work in those. Like, but yeah, me too, man. Like he's my go-to guy, and I think a lot of the Image guys were kind of riffing on his approach. Like
It's funny, dude, because like I've been going back through some New Mutants issues with Manny on the channel, and there was a couple
yeah,
of the like later issues where I'm like, dude, that looks like an Art Adams face, kind of, Like Liefeld's
oh
got a
yeah,
very distinct face to his characters, right? But like you definitely in some of them you could see that Art Adams like very
yeah,
prevalent, and I'm like, oh, that's crazy.
totally.
Like I wouldn't have noticed that if I didn't hear him say how much Art Adams was an influence on that generation, like that now, like knowing that and being able to hear that direct from the creators, you can go back and look and you're like, oh my God, there it is. There it is. So
Yeah,
that's
right.
pretty dope.
Totally. Yeah, excellent point, especially in the New Mutants era. Like Liefeld's Arthur Adams appreciation really came through.
Hmm.
Jim Lee too, early on, you can see like I didn't quite get it because of the cross hatching is something Adams never really did, but
Yeah.
minus that, a lot of the lines and shapes and even poses, Jim Lee, you could see his appreciation as well.
Hmm.
And like right here, this is a direct
That's an Art
homage.
Adams Wolverine.
Arthur
Yeah.
Adams right there. And the Adventures of Luther Arkwright.
Mhm.
Have you read that one? It's a classic. Brian Talbot, like he was doing awesome stuff with storytelling. So I didn't quite get that detailed into it, but there's certain moments and like the overall feel of like a cool dimension traveling, possibly time traveling main character who like wore a cool trench coat, just like was cool and kind of aloof. And that was an influence on like early Alan Moore stuff, like Brian Talbot's, especially the first Luther Arkwright book. And like he was pulling stuff from like Nicholas Roeg movies with the editing, like kind of out of time juxtaposition of like some random shot and then like the current shot.
Hmm.
And you can be like Mignola will do some cool stuff like that where it's like, here's Hellboy, here's a bird, here's a branch. And it kind of builds the mood, like showing some of the kind of stuff in the scene that's
Hmm.
not exactly like a random close up of a tombstone. But like it times out the pacing really cool. So
I'll have to check
he
that
was he was
out.
doing cool stuff. I recommend it. And like that's one where I finished it at like 2 in the morning reading the graphic novel and looking around like this is so amazing. Like nobody's around to tell about it.
Yeah,
It's so great, like
that's my life every day.
right.
I read a comic. I'm like, I got nobody to like look around and talk to about. That's why I had to
Like,
start a channel.
you guys see it? Yeah,
That's why there's a YouTube channel
right.
because I had to tell the world somehow.
Yeah, it's so cool to see like you and Manny get excited about certain comics and. So
Look
I'm
at
looking
that
at
juggernaut, dude. Sick.
that is one of my all like I love that whole era of McFarlane, but
Mm.
that issue in particular, I just go back to all the time. It's so like I'm not a fan of the his take on Cable, oddly enough. It's like too much armor and like it's almost comically cumbersome.
Hmm.
But overall, that issue all-time favorite. But especially you can see I'm approaching the clouds and like smoke. I realize I've looked at that issue so many times, it's kind of become part of my artistic DNA.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's so cool because it's one of the only times you see McFarlane drawing mutants.
Yeah, now that you mention it, I don't ever think about it that way, but yeah, you're spot
Yeah.
on with that. I mean, I can't remember
And
another
like
time he drew Juggernaut.
right, maybe on a couple covers,
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
but and he did a couple X-Men like Spider-Man team up or one of those like they're reprinting stuff. So he did a number of covers with some of the X-Men,
Hmm.
but the actual and they were in a I guess X Factor was in a Hulk issue that he didn't ink, so it's like so close. But and then the
Yeah,
classic Wolverine issue. That's why that issue is such a milestone because
yeah.
he inked it. It's the only full. So I love seeing his take on the mutant. So that's a favorite, and I love like so these kind of narration
Hmm.
approach, huge. Frank Miller kind of riffing. Some say rip off. I say homage.
Yeah, homage. It's hand
Mhm.
lettered too, right?
It's hand lettered, some by hand on the board, some a lot of it because I would rewrite it,
Yeah.
hand lettering in Procreate. So I would
So
take my
that's what I
Ames
love.
guide.
Yeah, that's what I love about your comics too, is the hand lettering. It's one of the things that I
Thanks. Yeah,
just did
like
because it gives it a different feel, man. It just a completely different vibe when it's hand lettered.
right. It's like it affects how you're reading something, right? Like
Hmm.
I played with computer lettering and then realized how connected the hand or the lettering is to the artwork. It's basically part of the artwork. Done with a computer, it feels off unless it's really a good font. Like some people can pull it off, but yeah, I prefer the seeing the hand in the lettering for sure. Even the backgrounds, you want to see somebody's hand and Dave Cooper's stuff. It's like everything in the world of his comics goes through his lens, It's like these light posts don't exist in real life. It's like that's a Dave Cooper lamppost, or that
Hmm.
building. I was trying to, without looking at his stuff, just kind of go for that idea with the buildings and the backgrounds, like give it a unique feel, like unreal, but still as if it could exist.
I would not have thought Dave Cooper. That's why I
But
love
like,
doing these. That's why I love doing these creative commentaries too, because like there's stuff that like I can obviously see. It's the obvious influences that usually stick out the most. But these
right.
like deep cuts would not have picked this out. That's dope.
Yeah, hopefully some are things you may notice the direct homage, and some are just kind of just filter into your psyche
Hmm.
as you're drawing something and may not realize it yourself at the time. Another big one, Tim Vigil.
What the fuck? I've never even
Wow.
heard of that book.
Yeah, it started off as Omega, but I think there's another book called Omega, so it became Omen. Maybe they did 3 issues, but and who knows over how much time it was spread out, but
Yeah.
awesome, awesome line work, great energy.
Hell yeah. Tim Vigil's on another level, dude.
Yeah, it's still doing stuff.
Now he would be a good guest of honor at one of the
Dude,
indie
right?
at
That
one
would
of the
be
indie
perfect,
shows. I'm
right?
calling it now. If anybody steals that from me, I want to do a West Coast show. I want Tim Vigil. So I'm putting that out into the universe and make it happen.
So you can see a little bit, this guy only has one claw, but and Grips had one claw. Just somehow like some of the blood splatter, definitely like through Faust, but not going that crazy into outlaw territory. Certainly in the back of my mind when anybody has a cool claw character, Tim Vigil comes to mind.
Hmm.
And just his line work that Bernie Wrightson on crack, like great characters and line work.
The
And then
password was really funny too, by the way. I don't need to like.
oh, thanks.
Yeah, I'll let people read it, but the password that you gave was hilarious. I mean, I know it's
Thanks.
childish
That's
to laugh at something like that, but to me, you know,
so that I still giggle at that stuff. And
yeah,
that's a friend of mine, Jert, who's an artist. Every time I visit him and I'm like, oh, hey, what's your Wi-Fi? And like, you look it up and he gets an embarrassed look on his face. And it's always like something like fart butt 69,
yeah,
pee pee poo poo
that's funny.
27, influenced by real life.
I
Here's
love it.
another visual shout out.
Oh yeah,
Definitely strong Sam Keith with that, overly the big feet and the big crouch, but
oh yeah, the feet
Vigil.
too. Yeah, the feet definitely stand out as like Sam Keith. It looks like something he would do.
But anybody doing black and white comics like should be looking at Vigil's ink work.
Yeah, he's next level, dude. I think coloring would like take away from it, you know?
Yeah, I've thought about it. I feel
Like
like
his stuff was
I'm
colored. Can you
overdoing
imagine
it.
those old Faust comics? Like if that
Yeah,
piece is colored, you're losing the line work on
totally,
that.
totally. And seeing like, yeah, seeing his work in color. Arthur Adams is another one where it's rare to see a color that really approaches it in a way that showcases the line work and the artwork. Like,
Hmm.
yeah, seeing it in black and white, it just lives. Same with the Crow, like the original Tundra, I think, did the first couple.
Yeah, I think
But
I think my trade might be the Tundra version. I'm not
uh,
sure. Maybe it's a later version, but yeah, that first Crow stuff. I mean, when I saw
yeah,
that movie, I was fucking like, what was I 8 or 9? And I just
yeah,
remember being like, what the hell? What the fuck am I watching right now, dude? But I loved it, like, and I didn't know it was a
yeah,
comic.
yeah,
I was already reading comics at the time, but I didn't know it was based on a comic book. And I didn't read
right,
it till much later, but like, yeah, it's like that movie, the imagery of that is like embedded in my brain. And the
yeah.
comic just like to me is like I don't want to say it's leaps and bounds better than the movie because I think the movie was definitely like a very, it
It's a
honored the
classic.
comic very well. Yeah.
Yeah,
But the comic is just so sick. James O'Barr he's a fucking, outlaw legend,
yeah,
dude.
totally, man. And the comic goes deeper as far as like the emotion and the
Hmm.
depth of what the character's going through and has been through, and like so many iconic pages. And like he would look, you could see some like Frazetta kind of Al Williamson kind of inking approach with the hatching, like
Yeah.
with the feathering. Huge influence on that just that whole era, the outlaw guys. Sam Keith again, as far as some of his page layouts,
Oh yeah, I dig it.
like those early Wolverine Marvel Comics Presents stories and like that Hulk 368, I think.
I haven't read
Like,
that Hulk one, or do I? Maybe
oh,
I have.
dude.
Maybe I have it. I'm not sure. I went on like a Hulk deep dive because of Hulk Grand Design. Like before it
Yeah.
came out, I like bought a shit ton of Hulk comics, like ridiculous amount. But I don't remember if I feel like I might have that one. If not, I'm gonna go check it out.
It's a definitely a classic, and you can see the strong like Bernie Wrightson
Mhm.
influence on his early stuff, big
Yeah.
time for that kind of. But man, his layouts are so cool. Like,
Yeah, I dig the way you were influenced by it, but it's like a completely different take because like you do have the background, right, where the panels, these other
yeah,
panels are overlapping, but it's not like this like weird monster thing or whatever that we're seeing over there. You have
yeah,
like interspersed. That's pretty dope.
yeah. And again, like I wasn't looking at this page necessarily, but looking back now, I can see approach definitely influenced how I was laying it out.
Yeah, the texture on that like castle was fucking really dope. I love Turbo Hawk. I love the design of him. The fucking definitely could have lived right there next to the 90s. So,
Thanks so much, man. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I love that era so much. I guess, like you said, when you're seeing The Crow like at that age and seeing some of these comics at that age, it really connects with you. Seeing like those comics just hit me at the right time, 12 to
mhm.
15 or whatever. So playing a little bit like still circular panel there, but trying to keep it, you know, without getting too abstract with the panel layouts, going back to rectangles and such, but like fun montage. And that, like, you can see the villain,
He reminds
Prometheus.
me of Etrigan a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah, I can
Obviously,
see
he's not a rhyming demon, but like,
that.
you know?
Yeah, yeah. I never thought about that, but totally. Yeah, good call. Yeah, I love Kirby and his demon stuff is awesome.
Yeah, that right page right there definitely has some Kirby crackle in there.
But another one who was influenced by Kirby that I was thinking of for some of these and the villain himself is Jim Starlin. He would do a
Yeah.
lot of cool montages, especially when they were reprinting Warlock. He would do like a catch up page,
Uh-huh.
like what happened before kind of thing. And some of those, like he would pack so much into one page. But I really liked his line work too, like really solid figures, but still
Yeah.
nice brushwork and cool detail, and just exotic, weird characters.
I haven't
Those
read enough of his stuff, to be honest with you. I've never read his Warlock, which I've heard multiple people say is great.
it's awesome. It
Yeah.
definitely probably helps if you are in that 12 to 15 age range. Like, but
I can put myself in that headspace. I mean,
yeah,
I'd
yeah.
go back and read old image. I just read Bloodstrike #1 last night, so
Well, there
I
you
can
go.
get, yeah, I can definitely, I know how to put myself back
Nice.
in that
Yeah,
headspace.
yeah. And he's yeah, I love Dreadstar. I love pretty much all the Thanos stuff that he writes. I enjoy. Like his take on that character is still one of my favorites. Like the Thanos quest,
Yeah,
like awesome painted covers he did for that. I think Ron Lim drew it, and he's great, but like nobody quite gets Thanos like Starlin.
yeah.
But yeah, Warlock was my favorite character for a long time.
I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that.
Yeah. I think it's because I'm looking through all the quarter bins and they had the big Warlock reprints with the nice
Okay.
paper and like so you get like 64, 80 pages or whatever
Yeah.
in one issue for a buck or maybe a quarter like at the time. So yeah, it's like I could find a complete run of those. Whereas looking through the 50-cent box, you're getting random issues of other stuff, but I could get a full run of the whole story of Warlock.
Yeah. I definitely want to go check that stuff out for sure.
Yeah, it's cool because he's not your typical hero. I think that's what I dug at the time. It's like he's not necessarily always good, but he's not bad. Sometimes he's hanging out with Thanos. It's just getting into random, more lofty, at least to a 15-year-old,
Hmm.
loft adventures. Here's another big time Sam Keith layout.
Yeah, I dig the layout on this page a lot.
Thanks. Just playing with different textures up against each other, like for composition and, you know, trying to get some depth with the floor perspective coming out, playing with the different values to try to balance the page.
Yeah, you get learn a little bit about what happened with the Turbohawk, these like cybersmith patches or how they patch them up.
Right, right.
They installed a tracker to kill switch to quell his rebellious thoughts.
Yeah, so it's like
So
they've got him under their thumb. They're under the guise of helping him out. They put a leash on him basically. So it's like he's powerful, but if a character gets too powerful, then there's less dramatic tension.
mhm.
So I'm going for the fact that he's got the potential to be super powerful, but they can tug his leash back and minimize him as needed. Here's another one I like. I was looking, I knew,
Dude, I would not have, I didn't guess this one.
yeah, but like McFarlane did this a lot. All the Image guys did this where it's
Eric
like,
Larson does this a lot, dude.
yeah, yeah, big time.
Yeah,
Yeah, some of those I didn't put in here because I feel like it's just obvious. Like I looked at
yeah,
so much Savage Dragon, so much Jim Lee,
yeah.
so much Liefeld, so much Silvestri. Like his X-Men run is still my favorite, and him you could see like Frazetta on some of his covers, like, but yeah, man, Dark Knight Returns was such a huge impact. Remember finishing that in the car on the way home from an early Chicago Comic Con, and similarly being like, "Have you guys read this? Like, are you kidding me? Like, how amazing is this? Like, 13 years old or something. Like,
Yeah.
why have I never read this before?" Partially it's because I couldn't afford to, but
Right. Yeah. No, I know. It's once you get old enough, dude, you
yeah,
buy all the shit you want.
but yeah, the storytelling, especially in the original Dark Knight Returns, still some of my favorite. Like, it's like so many panels, you slow you down and then it'll hit you with a bombastic splash page. It's so well timed and
Hmm.
visually striking.
Here we go.
Here's
You got
here's
this
the
image guys down below. I love it.
yeah.
I love the way you treat Todd. Todd and Jim made me laugh. Jim Lee.
Yeah.
I'll specify. Jim Lee with that fucking little mustache and goatee that he has that you gave him. It's
Yeah. I
hilarious.
wanted to do, a quasi caricature of them, but in the comic, they're villains.
Yeah.
So, and I love them. They're not villains to me, but in the comic, I wanted to give them that, you give a character a goatee, it instantly makes him a villain.
Yeah.
And Don Simpson's splitting image still has the best Jim Valentino caricature.
Hmm.
I
Is
mean,
that Will's in the
yeah, so
middle? The
Wells
movement? Okay.
in the middle. Because
Yeah.
he gets short shrift a lot of times when they talk about the original gang, because I think it took a while for
Yeah, he had some. I
him
think he had
on.
like a family thing. I think
Right,
I
right.
feel. I don't want to like speak out of pocket, but I feel like his sister had passed
Okay.
right around the time when they were doing it. So like he kind of missed. It sucks because he kind of missed that like initial pop of image.
Right,
So like by
right,
the time when he came out, it was already dwindling down, which
right.
sucks because like his life would have. What would his career have been if he had been there from the beginning, right? Like it actually got his book out. I mean, he still has had a great career. I don't want to take
Yeah, yeah.
anything away from him, but
But yeah, it could have skewed a little differently. But
yeah,
he's still one of my favorites, and especially his X Factor stuff, so much energy and like, man,
yeah,
great details, great. It's like Jim Lee-esque, but it's his own thing.
yeah, for sure.
And Wetworks was great, it was cool, but the story wasn't quite as solid. The visuals are amazing, but yeah, his X Factor stuff and some of his horror stuff. He did some epic stuff.
Hmm.
Like that, I can't remember the name, but he's like surprisingly underutilized for horror, I think. But yeah, his X Factor, huge. Love that cover, menacing, and that flat color really makes it sing. So a lot of guys, when they're coloring these hyper detailed artists, try to get in with all the modeling and the airbrush digital effects, but just flat color on this, like, it looks so iconic and still lets the line work show through.
Agreed.
Frank Miller again, the early Sin City when it was in Dark Horse Presents. That's still my favorite. That first Marv story. It's tighter than the rest of them. It's like maybe it's because he was doing 8 pages at a time. He really had to focus on that chapter.
Yeah,
Like, and he was still kind of figuring out what is Sin City, I think. And Dame to Kill For, the brushwork got a little looser, storytelling got a little looser, but that the original Marv story, as it was coming out in Dark Horse Presents, was like lightning. But
yeah,
I don't.
I didn't come to that till much later, but It'd be interesting to go back and read those single issues and see what you're talking about. Because like when you read it in trade, it's not gonna have that same kind of impact.
Yeah, yeah. Especially when back in the day, it's kind of like streaming shows now. It's like back in the day, you had to wait a month for the next chapter, and you're only getting 8 pages
Yeah, that's it's crazy
building
to
it.
think about.
Cool character with a trench coat, kicking ass, taking names, playing with the storytelling. Definitely Frank Miller, Stan back in the day.
Who wasn't?
Yeah. Hard Boiled was coming out around that time. And like he kind of like I guess he went to Hollywood for a little bit and then he came back and it was like, yes, like Sin City started coming out, Hard Boiled, at least
Yeah.
the first issue came out. And it was like, man, this is a new side of Frank we hadn't seen. Back to Arthur Adams, those long shot issues, they're like almost overpacked because that was like some of his first comic storytelling. There's just so much awesome line work and fun panel layouts, you know.
Still haven't read Long Shot. I just picked up the like an old version of the trade
Oh, cool.
from somebody. I gotta hunker down and read that, dude.
It's a lot of fun, but I feel like it's 20 issues crammed into 6 issues as far as like the story and the
Oh, okay.
amount of panels you like. But I still love looking at it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I ever sat down and read it from beginning to end in one sitting, but I've gone back to it hundreds of times over the years just to look through it and read bits of it, you know. And it's one, apparently he was signed up to do a sequel, but it turned into X-Men annuals and other
Yeah.
stuff. I would have loved to see as he developed to go back to that character, you know.
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen more comics from him, but
Yeah.
we got what we got.
Yep. Yeah, always glad to see anything that he puts out. But yeah, I recommend giving at least a read through, you know.
Hmm.
Cool. And weird. Like you don't see as many, especially Marvel comics, that bizarre. It's kind of feels almost like an early Vertigo, you know.
Really? Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to reading it for sure. It's been like one I've wanted to read for a long time, so.
Another
Oh
scene.
yeah.
I wasn't looking at it directly, but like this was such a powerful scene in the book, Dark Knight Returns, where it starts off where it's like you just see a little glimpse of what the character, the bad guy, can see,
Yeah.
and then as he opens it up, complete terror as he's hanging from this building.
I love that you have like a quasi bat symbol with a
Yeah, yeah.
line through it right there.
But I always figured from a building is scary, but over a busy expressway would could be as or more scary.
Dude, that shot right there on the left, first panel, where you're looking from the view of Turbohawk is crazy.
Thanks. I still cringe when I look at some of these pages, but I like the feel of that one.
Hmm.
And oddly enough, it was tough to find a friend to pose for that one. Uh,
You mean
but
nobody wanted to be dangled over a bridge?
it, I
That's
couldn't believe it.
crazy.
Yeah,
Dude, it's for the art, man. They gotta,
exactly.
come on.
Whatever it takes.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Now okay. I can see it right there.
Yeah, the early and more detailed. I feel like when he got deeper into the full on black and white stark shadows, he got away from this. But this was still some of, at least visually, my favorite era where like Elektra Lives Again is in that
Yeah.
category. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
like
yeah.
not my favorite book story wise, but visually, man, awesome.
Visually, it's great. Yeah, the story, not my favorite.
Right. It's cool,
Yeah. But the
but
art in there is fucking breathtaking, dude.
so amazing. And then like similar vein was like just cool B movies at the time.
Rutger Hauer, dude.
Dude,
I've never seen this. I kind of want to see it now just because of this poster.
badass. Yeah. Another one with Dolph Lundgren. There's an alien. I think there's multiple titles because it came out under different titles, but I think I Come in Peace,
Okay.
Lundgren movie where just similar, like badass in a trench coat fighting aliens.
Dude, yeah, Turbohawk definitely has that vibe of the way Rutger Hauer looks right there. I mean, minus the gun, obviously, but like you can see it for sure.
Total, yeah. And that's
Yeah.
another one where I loved it at the time, and I went back to look it up like for some reference, and I like totally those glasses I put on this
Oh yeah,
Mr. Nellis character.
dude.
But yeah, definite awesome classic B movie.
I love this. I gotta call out in the top left panel, respect to Kirby.
Oh yeah.
I love that, dude. I love, yeah, the way you lay these panels out is fucking dope. And I would not have guessed that. Oh well, I haven't read that issue. I've seen that cover of the Iron Man versus
Right.
Submariner, but dude, the fucking interior looks dope. I gotta get that comic.
Yeah. So I think Gene Colan was the artist on the book at the time, and apocryphal stories say he was sick, so Kirby had to come in and do it at the last minute. But like, so cover by Colan, but interiors by Kirby, and it's one of the all-time classic fight scenes.
Oh, it's
Like
fantastic. Yeah.
this page I found recently, it, like collages them all together from the issue. It's more spread out in the actual book, but
Hmm.
like one of my favorites and a way to shout out. Like the image guys wouldn't be there without Kirby, and neither would any of us. So definitely always any chance to show some Kirby love. Another, along with Rutger Hauer in Split Second is his other Blade Runner appearance.
Nice.
Harrison Ford, like that scene specifically where he's chasing Daryl Hannah, I think. I wish the whole movie was that. Like it's a classic, but it's way more subdued most of the time.
Yeah, I think they also don't make movie posters. This is Drew Struzan, right?
Yeah,
That did
yep,
this. Yeah, they don't make movie posters the way they used to either. Like, look
totally.
at that. That's such a dope poster. Like that you
Yep.
want to hang on your wall. Now
Right.
it's like I don't even think they give a shit
Yeah.
with posters, right?
Yep.
Spend no time at all.
Yeah. 10 minutes with Photoshop. Yeah, it's
Soulless.
yeah, Drew Struzan, super nice guy.
Oh, you
So
met him?
super humble. Yeah, like through the National Cartoonist Society, I've gotten to meet him a couple times.
Oh, that's so
Like
sick.
the nicest, like soft spoken, coolest dude you meet. Like so humble, down to earth.
Oh
And
yeah.
like, you see his work, and it's this amazing, cool guy in a trench coat. Another riff on that.
Oh
Dark
yeah.
Knight is littered with these awesome, kind of Dutch angle or just like we could do a whole episode just on the cool shots of Batman in Dark Knight, but like this one, at least without looking at it directly, also the cover of the Dark Knight where he's kind of all bunched up,
Yeah, I think is it issue 3?
3 or 4,
No, four's with Superman.
right? So it
Right?
must be,
So it's 3, I think. Yeah. Yeah, that like just like bulky as fuck, just
yeah,
like
yeah,
crouched down, all the different folds and stuff. Like, oh, it's so good. Yeah, I
yep.
love this. Yeah, it's a dope way to kind of like end off with Turbo Hawk too, because like you're also giving us like basically like what is his plan going forward? What is he going to be doing? Like how do I search for my
Right.
formerly dead girlfriend without being killed? But I love this. How do I search for my formerly dead former girlfriend without being killed by my current new employer? It's a
That's a
mouthful, but it's funny.
then the end where he's so him running across the rooftops. I totally picture in my head at least as Decker running across the
Yeah.
racing through there. And then like without realizing it, like seeing like New Mutants was awesome and X Force was awesome, but seeing Liefeld's sketches and character designs in between New Mutants and X Force, like, and just imagining what it was gonna be was the coolest. This would be like in Marvel Age or just in the back of stuff. Like,
Hmm. No, it's awesome, dude. Hell yeah.
so here, like you were talking earlier, you guys noticing the connection with Arthur Adams and Liefeld. Like, to me, this Liefeld piece is huge Arthur Adams vibes.
Totally agree. Yeah, I can see multiple instances where it looks, you can see the Art Adams influence for sure.
Definitely his own spin on it, of course, but
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah. No, for sure. But definitely, I mean, like I said, like you can it's to me it's like it's not super noticeable. It's subtle enough to where like you have to like really like look for it, but it's there.
yeah, Cable's face, big time, the
Hmm.
stance. But Adams, like, I would buy classic X-Men, even if I already had some of the Byrne issues.
Just for the cover.
The cover and the like, this was like an interior, like the front inside cover where they have a little illustration, and those
Mm.
are awesome. Like, this is, I think, taken from one of those.
I've never bought any of those classic X-Men, but now you're making me want to go get some of them.
That I think may have been my intro to X-Men. Like, those would be like at a Walgreens magazine rack. Like I'm waiting for my parents to do their thing, and I'm
Hmm.
just hanging out on the floor by the magazine rack. That's where I first saw like Ninja Turtles. I got like the Leonardo solo issue.
From
from
a
like a Walgreens.
Walgreens?
I think so. At
See,
least at like,
this is what the grocery stores and drugstores need to be listening to. Like,
right?
we need comic books back there. I'm not trying to take away from comic shops, but this is how so many of us saw them for the first
Yeah.
time. Because, it's like not everybody's walking into a comic book shop or is going to just happen to be like driving by and be like, okay, I'll go in there. Like, that's such a great way to discover stuff when you're walking down, a kid's walking down the aisle, they're like, oh, and it just like stands out to them, right? And they're like, what is that? I got to look inside. And it's like, I just think it's a missed opportunity. I'm not saying that comics are going to sell millions of copies because they're in grocery stores or drugstores, but I'm saying it could definitely attract new readers. Like hearing you say you found Leonardo da Vinci, I'm like, that's crazy to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Seeing and like old continuity studios, the Neil Adams
Yep.
uh comics there with like Michael Golden drawing armor. It's like, man, who's this guy? And then go find out his stuff.
Yep.
Then you see the lineage between Michael Golden to Arthur Adams to all the image guys. Like it's amazing what you can find sitting on the floor in the Walgreens magazine rack. But yeah, great point, man. Like sadly now a lot of kids don't have that opportunity to find comics at the newsstand.
I mean, you can know that they exist, but it's like, how many new readers could exist now or could grow from just like walking? I mean, Archie's still in the grocery stores, but it's like,
Yeah, yeah,
it's the small digest, like put some single issues, make a cheaper format then, like make a cheaper entry point, make a $2 comic, $3 comic. It could just even be reprints. Doesn't even have to be new content. Something.
yeah, yeah.
Throw something in the stores, man. You
Right.
know?
Yeah, it just takes that one to get you hooked, and then you go to the store to find the back issues.
Exactly. Then you have the ad to lead you to a comic shop, and you have the comic shop locator ad in the back. Like, I don't know. It seems like unless they've tried it and they're like, it just doesn't seem possible. But like, I think like what they
Sure, there's
try to,
reasons,
yeah, I'm sure there's
but
reasons, but I disagree. I think, you know,
there's
if
got to be a way.
it has to be a way, man.
So full circle,
Yeah.
Adams, this Wolverine cutout was at one of the local comic shops, Second Story Comics in Kirkwood, Missouri, and then uh, Bill's Comics and More around the corner. And like we hear stories of Jim Lee passing through town, like, oh, Jim Lee was here last week, and at Bill's Comics and More. It was cool just hearing little whispers like that. But like they had this awesome Wolverine standee, and I think at a different shop they were renovating or something. I was able to buy, or my parents
Stand.
probably bought it to actually take it home. And I still have it. It's in storage right now, but
Dude,
I
that's
still
so
have
cool.
like just it was just in my room, like in high school. Like, oh hey, there's Wolverine. And so to promote TurboHawk, I found a place that could print up. I redrew it after Arthur Adams, but imposed TurboHawk in that pose, and like now I have it back for shows. It was so cool to have that at the
I see three.
IC3.
Yeah.
That's the full circle of TurboHawk issue 1.
Hell yeah, dude. Well, it's been a
Talking,
blast. We're gonna talk Turbohawk 2 next time for sure, but it was a blast. It was cool to go through Turbohawk 1 with you, especially in this way where you had all that like shout out to you, dude, because I didn't put that together, but Meesimo came hard with that, dude, and it was cool to be able to see like the different influences, be able to visually see it on the screen with you. And yeah, dude, I'm really looking forward to going through issue 2. I want to thank you so much for doing issue 1. Um, and I can't wait for more Turbohawk because it's been a little bit since issue 2 came out, and I'm waiting for issue 3. So until
I'm deep
then,
into it.
yeah, until then, I'm gonna drop all the links where they can find you online, and the link to where you can pick up Turbohawk 1 and 2.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Ryan. Appreciate you having me back. Great talking comics with you as always.
Hell yeah,
And
dude.
TurboHawk 3 is in progress. So
All right, cool.
hope
Well, we'll talk soon, man.
cool. Thanks, Ryan.